Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the school committee of Wednesday, October 2nd. I'm happy to see everyone here tonight. I'd like to start off the meeting with public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the committee? Yes. Brian.
No, not at all. Good evening. My name is Brian Fitzgerald. I'm a fifth grade middle school teacher, English teacher, and I'm now connected to the sound system. I'm also the president of the Wareham Education Association, and I'm not going to steal any of Jan Ratella's thunder. I know she's going to describe the MCAS results, but I did want to take a moment just to offer, in addition, my congratulations to the staff at the high school. They're now back to being a level 1 school. That's the upper third in Massachusetts, according to the commissioner. And also to congratulate Minot Forest, whose measure also went up a bit. I'm not going to say anything more, Jan. I don't want to take away from your presentation. Clearly, nobody in this room, nobody associated with Wareham Public Schools is happy that we're still one of the 64 level 3 districts in the Commonwealth. Having been in or teaching now in a level 3 school, I have to say that I'm pretty optimistic with the leadership that we now have that that's going to change. And I'm looking forward to seeing a real up-close look at the data soon and knowing where exactly we have to go. And while some of my friends at the high school might quibble with the headline at the Wareham Week saying that their improvement should have come before anything else, I'm not going to say anything bad about the press, especially since it's Christian Fernandez's birthday today. But I would just want to close with the fact that we have 7 buildings in the system where children are learning. And I want to recognize that even though they didn't make the paper, the cooperative in West Wareham are working to help these students get the success they need to add to the success at the high school. And all of us are indebted to the work done at the East Wareham School in the pre-kindergarten for preparing these students to learn. They don't have MCAS scores in a large enough amount to make a PPI or to make it on the statistical tables, but there's a lot of good hard work being done there, and I wanted to make sure that they're remembered as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else that would like to address the committee this evening? Okay, moving on to good news.
I would love to start us off.
Great.
We were thrilled to learn that we have 44 students from the class of 2014 who received the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship Award. On Monday, we had a small ceremony at the high school where they received their certificates, and we will be inviting them to come to the committee so we can publicly recognize them for their great achievement. We also had 13 Wareham students who scored a perfect score on ELA, math, or science, 5 in ELA, 6 in math, and 2 in science. So we're very proud of our scholars, and we will also be inviting them to come to celebrate their success. And the middle school has been invited to participate in the Climate Lab. It's an innovative strategy for learning climate change for science in grades 7 and 8. So we're very happy to share this good news with all the public.
Great. Thank you very much. Anyone else with good news this evening?
I had good news, but it's sitting right there.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, they had the drive for your school Saturday. I guess had over 300 people drive forwards, and I think it was a shared benefactors. It wasn't just the Decker Group; it was other high school organizations that participated, and I guess the event rendered about $6,000 in one day. So I thought that was pretty good.
That's great.
Good event.
Thank you.
I drove a Ford too.
You did?
Yes.
You gonna buy one?
I haven't got any money.
No. There's that. Jeff?
Last night, our superintendent, our director of curriculum and instruction, and myself presented at the Massachusetts Association of School Committee District 7 meeting. And the reason it's good news, and I think it's fair to say this, and I'm sure our superintendent will correct me if she thinks I'm wrong, is so we operate in a vacuum here to some extent on a variety of issues. But what was very clear to me, and it's not the first time it's been clear to me, is that the collaborative efforts that we have made between our Teachers Association and ourselves with respect to educator evaluations is to a great extent the envy of quite a few schools in the Commonwealth, quite a few school districts. And it would not have happened without the 5-year collaborative effort that has produced the significant results in making the evaluation process for all educators much more meaningful than it was years ago. So I think that's really good news.
Madam Chair, could I add to that?
Yes.
I would also like to add that we are members of the Division 7, and that's, they divide the state up, and that's our division of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, and Mr. Sweat has been appointed chairman of Division 7, so congratulations on him. Another crown to wear.
I didn't make that part of my good news.
I guess he doesn't see it that way. Anyone else? All right, thank you for those pieces of good news. I'll move on to the minutes of the meeting of September 18th. I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Abstain.
401. Thank you. Okay, next is the update on the Deacon School Playground. Welcome. If you wouldn't mind just starting off introducing yourself, please.
Yes, Jennifer McCarran. Kelly Powers.
Nicole Mazzoli.
Tiffany DeBlois.
Thank you for being here. Turn it over to you.
Okay. A couple of years ago, Mrs. Panarisi asked me to head a playground committee, and I took on this job. And I have to say, these ladies, and not only them, but their husbands, stood beside me the whole time. Kelly's husband, Doug, owns Abbey Glass, and he's been my foreman and helped me through it all. Mrs. Mazzoli's husband came to every build and got machinery for me. Whatever we needed was there. Mr. Du Bois actually put up our swing sets 3 days before school started to make sure those swings were up for the children, to start school. So I just wouldn't have done it without these people. So thank you to all of you guys. And it started with the demolition. We had talked about this earlier on, and phase 1 was to remove all the outdated and out-of-code playground equipment. We started multiple fundraising initiatives to buy the new playground, Hat Day, student mall. We had Twin Day and candy bar sales. That was a big one. The kids loved the candy bars. And this was the old equipment that was there before, and that was one of the demolition days. And that was some more of it.
You say what time, about when did this start?
2 years ago.
Okay.
And Lowe's does a project every year where they like to help out someone in their community, the Lowe's stores, and they had chose Deacon's to come over and help beautify the project. They donated mulch and shrubs and
Employees.
employees. They came over. There was about 8 of their employees who came over and helped us beautify the grounds that day. They donated picnic tables. They helped us paint them. They put checkerboards on them so the kids who didn't want to play on the equipment could sit at the picnic tables and do checkers. And that's pictures of actually the Deacon's students who volunteered, painting the picnic tables and painting and just making the yard look very nice. I mean, we had people cutting shrubs and phase 2. With the fundraising for the largest phase of the new playground completed, it was time to purchase the new equipment. Our community build allowed local business owners, parent guardian volunteers, staff, community members to come together and partner to construct the first of the equipment. This is actually the community members and parents volunteering. Like I said, the machinery all came from their husbands. Mr. Powers made sure we had everything we needed. We had mulch dropped off, almost 50 yards of it. We put them in wheelbarrows and dumped and spreaded. And this is that, what?
Did you say 50 yards?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And next came phase 3. After much discussion on whether or not to purchase swings for the playground, the PTA and the committee members decided on purchasing the swings. A lot of the teachers, there was a lot of debate about the swings, whether or not we should have them, because the kids may get hurt. We had swings. We're here.
I would like to know what hurt in what way. I mean,
The children may be going and running in front of them or in back of them, and I can understand that. There's a lot of kids out there. But like I said, we all had them. We enjoyed them. So, and they worked out well. They have done a schedule. There's 5 classrooms, 5 grades. And each day they each take turns. So first grade, 5 classrooms do 5 days. And even if it rains, they miss their day. One of the kids had said to Mrs. Panarisi, "We haven't had our day yet because it rained." So they take turns, once a week. So it's worked out well. And this is actually Mr. Du Bois. He was there by himself that day. He had a couple of helpers on and off, but he practically did the swings himself. And like I said, on and off that day. The town workers also helped tear up, there was tar here in this area, and they had come and donated their time to take up the tar, and they donated sand after we put in the swings. We had put down sand instead of mulch. And this is actually the new piece, the last piece going up. Our playground is now complete. We approximately raised about $40,000. Local businesses donating resources, time, manpower, Abby Glass, the local firemen, Mark Scott, Lowe's. The Deacons PTA and Playground Committee led the projects to its completion. Teachers, parents, and community volunteers supported the project. We also had businesses donate food for that day. For our volunteers that were there, we had Subway, Cozy's, Papagino's, and American Pizza donate tons of food for these volunteers to have, which was really nice. And this is a couple of the pictures on our last day of the build. And this piece here is our last piece. And it looks pretty amazing from the beginning, from what we had. This is actually Mr. Flaherty enjoying the swings.
I was about to say, I recognize somebody using the swings.
I can erase my question as to who the school committee member was now.
And why the swing debate was, went in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And that's
Great.
it.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll open up to questions or comments from the committee.
Good thing you didn't ask Dr. Sylvia to attend the swing debate. He would have showed up in dance clothes because the swing goes back to when he was born.
Come over and try many times.
Yeah. Mr. Flaherty, they passed the test?
They did. We had to make sure that it wasn't moving. There was a complaint, I think, or a concern from an adult who had done it, so we put as many adults on there as we could to make sure it was okay, and it was. And the thing that's kind of interesting too is the date was moved up a day. It was supposed to be on a Sunday, and because of the rain, they had to move it up because they had to get it in. And I almost missed it. I was going to go on the Sunday, and I woke up. I was going to do something else, and my wife's like, "Why aren't you there?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh shoot, I got to get up there." So I did, but it all worked out great. It was all men toward the end, working the cement mixes and stuff. But it was quite a crew. Mrs. Panarisi was there. I know a bunch of you guys came and stuff, and that was great. It was. I wish it was interesting. I wish the dads would get more involved in other things. Wish I'd see more dads here in this room. It's always the moms, but I'm glad to take their help any way we can get it.
So I just want to congratulate you. That's outstanding. And I'm sure Ms. Panarisi is very pleased. All you did a wonderful job. I just hope my wife's not watching, that they were able to get their husbands to do something, because she's trying to get me, but you should all take a bow. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Yes, I also congratulate you. I think there's almost no limit to what can be done when educators and parents get on the same page and are trying to do the same thing on behalf of children. And I feel comfortable that you made the right decision about the swings. Even if the school committee passed a policy about no cuts and bruises, somehow I think they would happen.
Yeah.
Part of growing up.
Well, I think the best part for us too is the day of the build, the kids walking by, going to soccer, the little kids going, "Mommy, we're getting a brand new roller coaster, look." I mean, the kids, they couldn't wait to come back on Monday. You know, and that being out there and pushing that mulch, and
They couldn't get the tape to be cut.
yeah, they could not wait the
Till
tape
Tuesday.
to be cut.
Oh,
Now,
yes.
I was out with my
Right.
injury on Monday, and it was supposed to be taken down Tuesday morning, and I'm riding back Tuesday morning from a meeting here, and I'm like, oh, the tape isn't down yet. So I went inside and I asked the custodian to take it down, and he said the first set of kids was at 1 o'clock who went outside, and they were like, "We're getting the first one." You know, so it's just really exciting to see their reactions.
Thank you.
It's a big source of pride for the kids as well. They feel very proud to have such a nice playground.
Yeah.
I think you folks have modeled some very important things, and it's really, really great to see. And I think that the community can take a good hard look at what it means to truly be a village and to come together and put the value on our young people and our educational system. And you folks have modeled what it means to come together, community members, parents, faculty, administration, all coming together for a common goal. And if we can expand upon that and keep it going and keep it rolling as we move forward to improve our academics and expand our social offerings to our young people, I think it's a lesson well learned. You folks are to be congratulated, and I think that you can point to yourselves and to your children and also to the school system with pride. We don't pat ourselves on the back quite enough. There's a lot of wonderful things happening in Wareham, and there's some really concerned parents and people in Wareham, and our kids are as good as or better than anywhere else in Massachusetts. So kudos to you, and I think you've modeled a very, very important lesson of what it means to come together as a community. Thank you very much.
So I'll just say that my son plays soccer on Deaconess every Saturday, and he was one of the kids that walked by there, and his comment was, "Why don't we get one?" Because he goes to Minot. And so that's just, a word out there that we do need to continue this also, but it's a beautiful, beautiful playground. And I think that one of the things that it showed me was that the kids seeing that there are folks in the community that care about them enough to build them something so special. And I think that's incredible, and we need to do more of that for them to basically show that support. And I can't thank you all enough for the vision and the drive and that, we're not going to stop until it's done kind of attitude. And $40,000 is a huge, huge feat. So congratulations on that also. So.
Thank you. And I have had parents notify me, asking me how I started, how could they start this?
You want to do another project?
No, they're done.
I'm all done, thank you. My 3 kids all went through DECUS, and they say, "You do this now when I'm not there?"
Right.
So,
Good for you.
Just the one question that I had was, how how did you go about getting volunteers, and where would you say the difficult level was when it came to recruiting, and how did you recruit, and you know,
I
what?
think we did that through the PTA. You know, it all started with the PTA and going there and saying, who would like to subcommittee on this and, you know, help me out with this. And we did have a larger committee. We have some, you know, kids that left that are not here anymore that went on to 5th grade or, but the PTA and all those moms and that's not even dads who weren't here also helped. You know, these people just stuck by me through the beginning.
Yep.
But they can do it. And I told them, you know, you guys can do it. Just start fundraising and make it a priority.
We did actually, and it did come.
Just move the microphone
Sorry.
towards you. That's okay.
It did come in the PTA and the subcommittee and things like that. And like you said, I think if you have a vision, this project in itself shows that if people have a vision and they can come together as a community, that we can all work together. And as our excitement grew, other people's excitement came along with us because we were so excited about it. So that's where we got help from. We did this year, as a matter of fact, now that we've completed the playground, we've put out a request to parents to maintain it, so that we've done a volunteer form through the PTA asking who would like to volunteer for different things in the school, but also one of them was for playground maintenance. And we've gotten a lot of people who have agreed, and it kind of says, Dad will be there to volunteer for playground maintenance. But that was one of our ways that we're trying to, with volunteers, now go from being in the playground to helping in the schools, volunteer from different parents. And we've had a tremendous amount. I haven't put the directory together yet. I'm still working on it, and I'm only halfway through, and there is a large number. So if you ask people, they do want to help. But you have to follow through with asking them and then acting on getting them in there to help, because I've heard a lot of parents come to the PTA and say, I volunteered, but no one called me.
Mm-hmm.
So we did call
Great.
for this particular project, and we'll continue for other things throughout the community.
Well, I'm sure Mrs. Panarese, now that this is done, has a full list of things what the next project might be. Anything else? Yes.
Just building on what Cliff had said about how it's building on the sense of community. I remember after phase 1, I think it really struck Mrs. Panarese when she saw people she hadn't even seen in the schools before, because they just lived nearby and brought their kids there. They weren't even in the schools yet, and it really was a community thing, and that was really something.
Great. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for your presentation, and thanks what you did for that school and everything that you're doing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Very.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next on the agenda is the MCAS results. Mr. Kella? Good evening. Welcome.
I have paper copies of the PowerPoint if anyone, a member of the committee needs them.
Has it changed at all?
Oh, a little bit.
Okay.
And for the press, so.
So it's changed from what was sent to us?
Yes, I just, slight revisions. A couple of typos and.
Okay.
But the data, graphs and
Data's
things
the
like
same.
that.
Okay,
Yes,
that's
it
fine.
is the same.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
These will be fine.
Okay.
First, I want to say good evening to all the members of the school committee and the public who is watching. I thank you for inviting me here. And as soon as I need to reduce the playground, but not really. We received our preliminary MCAS results earlier this summer, along about August. And then the final results came from the state mid-September and were embargoed until, I believe, September 19th. The mixture of the results is there. I am tonight not going over the usual school by school that I have done in other years. This is just an overview of the district results tonight. So school principals will be bringing that to you at a later meeting with their improvement plans. Before I begin with the results, I just wanted to very briefly, and I'm not going to go through all the details of the Progress and Performance Index. As some of you may remember, we spent a good bit of time on this last year, and it is a new measure of accountability that was approved through Massachusetts receipt of the NCLB waiver. And as Race to the Top grant recipients, we were allowed to apply this waiver and to have progress performance indexes. Once the Commonwealth received the statewide approval, this applies to all schools in the Commonwealth. The difference between the Progress and Performance Index and the former AYP is that all students are not expected to receive proficiency. So the 100% proficiency has been removed and replaced by what is called halving. We have a half of the goal to 100%.
I'm sorry, Jan, just to interrupt you, just so then I make sure. So the 100%
Yes.
that they have been saying since they started this.
Yes.
This past year, because they're seeing that student that is an unrealistic goal, they're now changing it to having.
Yes, they actually changed it last year. Yes.
Okay.
So what I'm going to show you is what our PPI ratings are, and then more importantly, I'm going to move into proficiency and the percentage of students at proficiency or better, and then I'll show you our targets under the halving. So yes, the system has changed. The good news, bad news for Wareham is that in this new system, in order to calculate what the halving goal or target would be, they used 2011 as the baseline. 2011 was the year our scores had improved the most. So we have a high baseline and a new accountability system. Now, in this system, there are some pluses. We receive points, if you will, on multiple indicators, both indicators of achievement levels, what you came to know as the Composite Performance Index, and student growth, or SGP. And based on our students' results in both areas, we're awarded points. And their points are assigned 25, 50, 75, and 100. The plus that helps districts is the high needs count. If you remember, under the old AYP system, a student could literally be counted 4 to 6 times. In other words, if a single student was low income, had a disability, and was in a minority, and English language learner, that student's score counted 4 times. Under this new system, all students are with any of those categories, or in any of those categories, are lumped into one subgroup called high needs. The 5 indicators of the Progress and Performance Index, and this is a little jumpy, are listed here. And it is based on 4 years of data. And this slide has been corrected to show that the 4 years that are included in our Progress and Performance Index for 2013 are 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2013. And this should read 2013. The cumulative PPI scores are what sets the level. And the district is automatically at the level of its lowest school.
Lowest school.
Yes. Okay. So that's the background for this little chart. Now, along with the PowerPoint, each of you received in your email a multiple-page document that broke down all of the progress and performance indicators. I did not try to put that on a slide, but when we get to questions and answers, I'll be happy to speak to that detailed form. What you see here next to all students and high-need students are the cumulative progress and performance index scores, including English language arts, math, and science for both achievement and growth for all of our students in the district. One of the unique, if you can call it that, aspects of our results is where in many districts, if you were to look at this, you would see that all students, the aggregate of everyone, their PPI is often higher than high needs. So then the district receives another reduction, if you will, in scores because there's a gap between all students and high needs. Our gap is in reverse. Our high need students, that means the composite of low income, ELL, students with disabilities, and minorities is actually higher than all students. Where there is a gap is between high needs and white or Caucasian students. And you can see the higher performance. Now, I have mentioned before that this Progress and Performance Index awards points, and it's an arbitrary cutoff of points, 25, 50, 75, and 100. Then they're averaged, and these scores are arrived. And this is what the Department of Ed releases. For our discussion, I have included in the charts the percentage of students who are proficient or higher at various grade levels in ELA, math, and science. I think this gives you a clear picture of where our students are and where our work needs to be. Rather than looking at arbitrary cutoffs, which we can discuss on a more academic level perhaps, in this way we're looking at students. You will see here it is quite obvious that in grades 3 and 4, literacy has to be a target area. While we were showing some growth last year, we have not shown growth in 2013. We can attribute it to a number of factors, not the least of which is a new set of standards. All of the 2013 scores are based on the Massachusetts frameworks and Common Core state standards. And we can also know that this is where we need to target professional development, and it's where we need to target our resources. In ELA, grades 5 through 8, our new middle school grades, you can see that the only grade level that showed any improvement in literacy was grade 7. Again, needing to target our literacy skills for all students. Grade 10 has shown improvement, in literacy, as well as their overall scores. And remember, on the district level, grade 10 reflects not only Wareham High School, but also Wareham Cooperative and West Wareham Academy. All students, not only all students in the district, but even any out-of-district students who are Wareham students, so special needs students that are placed out of district, not private or charter, just special needs. There are literacy, again, this is the percent proficient or higher. A little better news in mathematics. Percent proficient or higher in mathematics has gone up significantly in grade 3. Grade 4, it went up only slightly, and here it looks like it remained the same because it was a 1/10 of a point difference. Again, mathematics had received professional development, is continuing to receive support. Mathematics has had aligned curriculum in grades 3 and 4. In grades 5 through 8, you can see that we show some increase in grades 5 and 7, 6 and 8 dipped, and we know there is where we need to target mathematics. In grades 8 and 10, you've already seen grade 8, grade 10. All grade 10 students across the district have shown marked increase in mathematics. Actually, they have increased their highest year, which was in 2006. And this is the greatest increase we've seen in mathematics at the high school. Science, again, we see a huge increase in grade 10. Again, focus on aligning with the new STEM and science requirements. A slight increase in grade 8 and a decline in grade 5. Again, these are all percent proficient or higher. This chart shows the composite performance index of Wareham versus the state. And this is where the targets, I've included the targets. If you look here, you will see, for example, ELA in Wareham this year is at 82.6. Our 2013 target was 87.0. And by 2017, we need to be at 92.25 as a district. In math, the target for 2013 was 78.9. We made 75.2. Although it was an increase, it was not high enough. And the target for 2017 is 87.4. In science, our target was 81.4. We were at 72.1 in spite of the increases in grade 8 and 10, and we need to reach 88.8. So you can see, going back to your question, Rhonda, that formally, under the AYP, all schools, all students would have had to be at 100 by 2014. But they've halved the difference based on 2011, and our new targets for 2017 are the CPI scores or indicators that you see in the brackets. That's where we are. Where are we going? Data analysis has already begun, but not in the usual way. Our superintendent is going school by school to meet with faculties. We have a very active data coaching team of 22 teachers and administrators across the district who are working on a school-based level to help teachers look at their scores, identify weaknesses and strengths, and then move to the second level of analysis, and that is analysis with purpose. Teachers and principals are being asked to design and implement improvement plans, school-wide, grade-wide, and subject-specific. And then as they develop and implement instructional plans that will reach those improvement plans, they are receiving support. This support includes improved instructional strategies through professional development that is targeted and high quality. One of the things that we began in August and will continue through the year is not only a drop-in, if you will, professional development, but continuous development followed by coaching, which according to research is the most effective. And this professional development not only targets instructional strategies that are effective, but targets content. One of the things that has become quite obvious through the analysis of not only these results, but also walkthroughs and classroom visits, is that we need to raise the depth of content competency across the district. That doesn't mean that our teachers have not been trained. They have been. We're at better than 99% highly qualified teachers. But the expectations of the new Common Core standards have increased to such a level that the content knowledge has also increased. I shared with you last year some of the shifts. You saw those drops in grades 3 and 4 literacy. The reading level expectations have gone up 1/2 to 1 full year annually in the new Common Core state standards. So this has affected not only our results, but results across the state. So what we have already put in place and will be supporting throughout the year is very targeted professional development to raise teachers' awareness of what the expectations are and to put in place aligned literacy and reading programs at the elementary levels through grade 5 that reflect these new lexiles. Grades 6, 7, and 8 has the materials, and they will be receiving professional development. We were able to purchase complete classroom sets, K through 3, of the National Geographic reading and literacy program called Reach for Reading. It is one of only 2 programs built on the Common Core state standards. It includes a wealth of books or trade books, as well as materials, online, and paper. Every classroom received a library of approximately 100 titles. Each of those titles is provided to the classroom at different levels, so students can begin reading at their level and move up to above grade level. These were purchased as a result of the warrant the town meeting passed in June. And now we are looking at additional funds in that warrant that, in fact, the superintendent and I were just looking at today to extend that program to be fully purchased for grade 4. Also, because of the warrant, we were able to purchase aligned high school math programs, which were piloted last year, and now all math classes at the high school, Algebra 1 and 2, Geometry, and Pre-Calculus, have aligned textbooks, resources, ebooks, and online interactive programs. Because we were able to purchase the interactive programs online for both the elementary reading program and the high school math program, they are revised every 60 to 90 days. We received a bonus, if you will, in the math purchase at the high school in that they've extended the online program resources and interactive revisions to grades 7 and 8, so that the math program at the middle school can also be updated and aligned with the Common Core. Very briefly, that's where we are as a district. I'll be happy to answer any questions, discuss any strategies.
Thank you, Jan. Questions, comments? You want to begin? Yes? Yeah? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question on, last year we talked about slight increases in grade 3 and 4 ELA, and it's gone down. I think I got part of that. Is that because of the change in the standards? Do you think that's a big part? I know we were talking about last year, we're here, and we're looking to improve, yet we went that way.
We did. We didn't, I mean, there are pockets of improvement across the district. Overall, as a district, we did go down. I do think the standards affected us. They have a little tool called Edwin Analytics, and you can look at your school or district results based on the 2011 Massachusetts Frameworks and Common Core State Standards, and then flip on the menu to 2004. So you'd see different results. But I think what we have to look at where we are, and where we are is the 2011 Common Core State Standards. There's a national test coming out in 2015. Our students have to be prepared. The increase in rigor and expectation is significant. And the other thing that has hit our students is that now, beginning at the elementary level and increasing through the levels, students are required to read and comprehend a minimum of 50% informational text. So the instruction is in both informational, what we used to call nonfiction text, as well as narrative fictional text. So yes, I do think that's had an impact. I think it's had an impact on both students and teachers. It's a very different way of teaching.
So almost the same question for 5 through 8. If it is some impact by the standards, 5, 6, and 8 all showed declines.
Yes.
Yet there was a slight increase in the 7th grade. Can you explain that?
In 7th is the only grade where they have the long composition, and our students did well on the long composition. And I think that gave a a blip, if you will. One of the other changes, and I think if you remember back just a few years ago and even farther back when we all were in school, if you were given any kind of reading English language arts test, you read a short passage and then you had questions to answer that were maybe multiple choice and then maybe an open-ended question. Students now are given 2 passages or 2 excerpts to read through grade 4. And beginning in grade 5, they're 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10, they're given 3 different passages to read, compare and contrast, and show evidence. So the level of inference, the level of comprehension is much higher. And when there's multiple passages, at least one of them is informational text. Our new reading and literacy program for grades, we've fully implemented grades K through 3 this year and introduced it to 4 and 5 and are hoping to fully implement 4, has that same design embedded in it.
And we don't track ELA grade 9?
There's no MCAS in grade 9. There will be a PARC national test in grade 9.
This year, or has that?
2015.
2015. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I'll save most of my questions for when the principals are here, but a couple of high-level questions. First of all, what do we have against 4th graders?
Absolutely nothing.
And why were they deprived of the same curriculum?
What we purchased for 4th grade initially was what the former superintendent believed we could afford, which was Ladders, which is a supplementary nonfiction informational text reading material that integrates science and social studies as well as provides leveled readers.
But it was different than grade 3 and 5.
No, grade 4 and 5 both received the supplementary ladders. They did not receive the full classroom sets with libraries.
Okay. I'm not 100% clear about this change in the rigor and the orientation towards more critical thinking and less knowledge-based. When exactly did that transition take place with respect to the testing?
This year. Last year.
When you say this year?
2013.
The data we're looking at for 2013 is when the nature of the questioning changed?
Yes.
Okay, so, and there was no normalization effort done to deal with the differences that they anticipated for 10, 11, and 12?
Not that I've seen.
The results were what they were?
Cutoffs were cutoffs.
Okay.
What they did do is in 2012, they introduced questions, portions of the questions on MCAS in 2012 were reflective of the new standards.
So there was sort of a weaning process onto this new, okay.
Yes.
You asserted that the state as well as Wareham struggled with this.
To some extent, yes.
I don't see that in the state results. The state went up, essentially stayed flat for ELA.
Yes.
And we had a significant dip. I'm looking at the penultimate slide, I guess you would say. Would you agree that the state doesn't seem to have had any negative impact from the change in the testing, and Wareham did?
I think if you look at the state results in literacy, they went from 86.7 to 86.8, so relatively flat.
Yes.
And yes, and Wareham did a dip.
So
do I think the impact was greater in Wareham? Absolutely.
Well, you asserted that we both struggled. I would say the state didn't struggle. The state has been basically in the same area, normal variation, if you will, for several years, and we succumbed to this change to a much greater extent than the state. Is this change in the rigor reflected in the kind of questions for math as well as ELA?
To some extent, yes, in the fact that the mathematics has shifted. so that the expectations and standards have moved up into, well, the standards have moved higher for lower grade levels. The difference I think you see in our math scores is that 2 years ago, at the lower grade levels, K through 6, we adopted everyday math and have implemented the revisions as they were made, aligning it with the Common Core.
So I guess I come back, I mean.
The literacy changes were extremely significant.
Right, I mean, we basically, mostly thanks to the high school, I guess, maintained our significant difference, but at least didn't get worse with respect to the state versus Wareham. But there's a statistically very significant dip in ELA, even though ELA in the elementary schools was where we put our RTI efforts.
Yes.
So how do you explain this significant dip, especially in light of the fact that the high school continued to go up? And that's actually, if we took out the high school students, specifically the 10th grade students, that dip would be even greater.
I think RTI and tiered instruction is a valuable program. I believe that when you identify students' weaknesses and they get a second teaching or reteaching based on those weaknesses that have been demonstrated in core instruction, you will see great improvement in students' achievement results. If the interventions that are provided through RTI are focused on skills not necessarily aligned with what is currently taught in the core instruction, you're not going to see the results.
So why would we do such a thing?
I will say that Dr. Marks and I are working very closely to bring RTI and curriculum and instruction into one solid instructional package.
As I said, I'll save most of my questions. I will say this, when the subject for graphs remain the same, when you go from slide to slide and you change the y-axis,
Yes.
it's not appropriate. So if you could make the y-axis the same on each slide when it's the same subject,
I'll
I
be
think
happy
would be
to.
much more valid presentation. Thank you.
I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah.
Please don't take this personal, anyone in the audience. But the more we do the same, the more we're gonna get the same. And we have been aligning curriculum around here about, for the last 25 years. And we should be doing that. That's what we do. The standards change, but the standards change for everybody.
Yes.
Everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's battling the same situation. So we have to take a look at what are our successes doing that maybe our lack of success are not doing. And I always come down to, we can do staff development, and we can do bi-curriculums, and we can do response to intervention. And incidentally, we're doing response to intervention at the high school. It's called core classes.
And have been doing it for years.
So I have to ask myself, what is the high school doing? Or what is the atmosphere at the high school that could correlate to the other schools? And I come to some real simple conclusions. Now, my conclusions are not scientific. They're just based on 48 years in the business. The high school several years ago got a little ingenious and got a little creative. And they dedicated themselves by teaching 20% more by reducing class size. They set as their goal to have workable, manageable class size in which they could really dive into aggressively solid curriculum and solid expectations and rigor. Meanwhile, the poor children down at the elementary level have had their budgets cut, has steadily seen class size go up. You said yourself has been probably not as provisioned as they probably should have with up-to-date curriculum materials because of budgetary constraints. So I think that we can look at this thing in terms of curriculum, and I know that that's what you do, and you do it quite well, as a matter of fact. But I think we have to look at what we're not doing. What are we not doing? Where are the priorities for our success stories, and why can't we replicate those simple things at all levels? So I know it's a profound statement, and I don't have the answer for it, and I don't have a scientific background for it, but it's just a gut feeling that class size is a really important thing. Secondly, we as a school district have got to reach out to that population that needs our help. And I'm talking about the high needs population, the low income population, because we have got, and you can't take it away, variables that are unique to Wareham. And those children, regardless of their high needs or regardless of their socioeconomics, deserve an education. And we need to reach out to them and to give them every possible opportunity that we can give to educate them, which means we need to develop home-based outreach programs. We have got one of the highest rates of single-parent households in the state of Massachusetts. That is a variable that will affect academic achievement. We need to address that need. We need to provide programs to educate our young parents in this community. So I think that we should not sit on our hands and say, well, we're just going to disregard curriculum advancements, and that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, let's take a good hard look at what's working and try to replicate it. And from where I sit, one of the best things that happened to the high school was when they went to that 6 class periods and reduced their class size overall. It did 2 things. It reduced class size, but also provided the opportunity to expand programming. You expand programming into the arts, you'll see an increase in academic achievement. So I still think that what we're doing in this town in terms of data-driven assessment or assessment-driven accountability is pretty good, actually, given the set of variables that we have in this town. So I think we can look at our teaching staff, our administration, and say, we're not doing bad, given the fact that we're one of the lowest per capita in terms of the budget, and we have all of these other social problems that we have to deal with on a daily basis. So I guess if I were to give you a prescription for success, it would be build on what's working. Build on what's working.
And I think there's one other thing that the high school has that can be built on, and that is content specialists.
Well, that was my idea about specialization. And it seems to be working a little bit in math.
Yes.
So, and there's other things that we have to improve upon. We still need to do common assessments. We still need to do collaborative evaluation of the assessments. We need family outreach. We need to refine our benchmarks. And, there's a lot of things that we still need to do. But I think that those are things that we would do normally. I think what we've got to do is get a little bit more creative and say, okay, let's go to the core of the problem and try to put in strategies and programs that are going to attack the core of the problem. And I think the core of the problem is not just academic, it's also social.
Yes.
All right. I think it's something like my second year on the committee, and it's deja vu all over again. So I'm going to sort of ask the same questions as before. And I remember the last time you had referred, leading up to this, you'd referred to the benchmark testing that you do throughout the year, and you were optimistic.
Yes.
And how was that this year? Were you last year, I guess I should say, for 2013, were you optimistic with the benchmark test as well? And then we had these results?
The benchmark tests that were done approximately every 6 weeks during the school year did not show the significant improvement that we had hoped in literacy. They did in math, but not in literacy. And I think it was a confluence of a number of factors, including, and I say this with no criticism, that when expectations are raised, then it puts pressure on both the teachers and the students. And if a teacher feels nourishing and empathetic towards a student, sometimes those expectations are not implemented to their fullest.
I think I remember that from last year, too. Let's see.
Now they have all of the materials, so that the expectations are even higher.
Yeah. Now, I remember, again, last year, looking at when we went over this stuff last year, I said, looking forward to this year, that pretty much I'm going to treat this year as an asterisk year, given all of the cuts that we had and the warrant articles that didn't pass and all the huge cuts. And I mean, this year I would treat as an asterisk year, except for the middle school. The middle school was insulated from all of those cuts for the most part, correct?
For the most part, they were.
And yet the results are still taking a nosedive in comparison with the high school, which took the cuts. And I have to reiterate pretty much what Dr. Sylvia said after the district review, and yet somehow the high school makes it work with nothing.
Well, the high school still has a much smaller class size than does the middle.
But they've been cut. I mean, they saw a cut, and the elementary school saw a cut, and the middle school didn't, for the most part. And yet,
That would be true of this year.
for this data.
For this data, the middle school did not receive an additional cut in staff that
Right.
they had the year before, and their class size continued to be very high. The difference in class size, which is a factor, it's not the only factor, and I don't mean to say that, but the class size at the high school ranges from 16 to 25 at the highest. The class size at the middle school has been in the high 20s.
You know,
And it's just one factor. I do not think it's the only factor.
we
I
say,
think I have to go back to content specialization and that master competency in content.
you know, we say it year after year. We have to learn from the examples of what's working right. As Mr. Sweat put it last year, these gems you
That's
find
right.
here and there, and but we're not. I don't think we're learning any of these lessons. That I don't see it. I guess I'd ask the superintendent, are you familiar with the in your last district, did you use the same or similar benchmark tests that we use here? The GMAIDs,
Grade.
yeah, all that stuff?
GMAID and grade are pre and post test. The
Yeah, but they're
benchmarks that
diagnostic.
we use are based in the curriculum.
Were you happy with whatever you were using at your previous district?
We developed them, our content specialists developed the benchmarks that we used.
You built your own in-house?
Mhm.
Oh,
We
wow.
did.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Can you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
I'm going to say something first. In the box that you have for the 2013 CPI targets,
Yes.
so can you just explain, so where do we need to be next year? Is it in the parens or in the,
The parens are 2017.
okay.
I can tell you where we need to be next year because I was
So
playing.
what was outside the parens? So the
That is
87
what the target was for this year, for
For this year,
2013. Now, for 2014, in ELA, I'm sorry, I keep running my hand in front of this. We need to increase approximately 2 CPI points per year. So next year's target is approximately, I'm eliminating the fractions and decimal points, 89.
In math?
In math, it is,
Is it
in
another-
math, you're looking at approximately 81.
Okay.
Might be closer
Science?
to 82 when I add the decimals.
And in science?
And in science, you're looking at 83, 83.5.
Okay. All right, so, the results are what the results are, and I think the only thing that I take issue is when we say, you know, not meaning to criticize. I want us to criticize all over the place. You know, we go to the GEM comment, we go to the, you know, looking at what works and doing that. And if we're not doing that, then I think that it's okay to coach and criticize and support and all of that, because we keep slipping back. And so when you're taking a look at where we need to be in 2014, and we have slipped this year, you're talking in some cases double digits that we need to improve by.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have, and our superintendent has made that abundantly clear in whole faculty meetings, and we have already started planning very targeted professional development and coaching for teachers with the clear expectations. This will be implemented, and these are the targets that need to be reached. The benchmarks that we have been using for literacy have been developed in-house. We are looking, this Friday, I have a meeting with the elementary principals and instructional leaders to look at those benchmarks, review them in light of the standards, and review and revise those benchmarks at a rigorous level so to be able to monitor and our progress towards these targets.
So the only thing that I'm concerned about is that if we start, so one, when school improvement plans are put in front of us, you know, we always talk about, you know, increasing by a percentage point or 2 percentage point or 3 percentage point. I think the only goal should be that it's the number of what we have to reach in 2014.
Absolutely.
And I understand that there are issues with MCAS, and I understand that there are issues with the way that the state calculates and all the different changes. I love that, you know, we continue to try to have a high benchmark and raise the bar in our schools, and all of a sudden the state comes back to us this year and says, we're gonna have it now. So they're even dumbing down their own, you know, the way that they're trying to calculate, which is just unbelievable, and it sends a message that I'm just not happy with. But I think that, so that's one, when it comes to how do we need to increase by, that should always be the goal until we meet the standard or surpass the standard. The concern that I have is, I don't know why, but I kind of feel that we're always shocked when we have this one meeting or this one presentation, or the results come out and then we're here and we have this presentation and the principals are going to come to us and talk about it. Why aren't we having mid-year check-ins where, and it's not even, it's basically that there's a report that is telling us where we are on a quarterly basis or even on a monthly basis, whatever it is. You're testing every 6 weeks, so what are those? But the concern that I have is if we saw concerns last year every 6 weeks in the benchmark testing that we're doing, did we make any changes? Did we change course? Did we give extra support? Did we do anything to try to turn the ship into improvement instead of just saying, oh, it looks like it's going to go down again this year?
The most significant response that we had was when the initial math benchmarks came out, 6 weeks after the first MCAS scores. It was most disconcerting. I met with the elementary principals and brought a plan forth to Dr. Rabinovich to move one of our most highly competent elementary math teachers who had additional mathematics training, who had been one of our mathematics coaches in the years where we had seen improvement, and had also been highly trained in the Common Core state standards and understood the everyday math program and what needed to be supplemented to teachers' instruction to reach those high standards. He approved the plan, and we moved this particular person out of a study skills teaching position at Minot into the position of district-wide mathematics coach. She developed district-wide curriculum maps in mathematics for K through 6. That was her task, to develop these maps that outline for teachers their pacing guides, where to meet the standards, where to assess the standards, and where to reteach the standards. Then she spent from January through June in each of our elementary schools on a regular basis, at least one full day a week, coaching and working with teachers.
Okay.
And I think the results are evident in mathematics, that there was a change.
In the elementary level?
At the elementary level.
Okay, so that's
And
a
was-
change that was in the elementary.
That's the
but we
only
had,
place.
Okay, the only place that we made a change based on the results that we were seeing.
Yes.
Okay.
If you do the same old thing, you're gonna get the same old results.
Jeff?
Comment, quick question. I think I heard you say that there was something mutually exclusive about a nurturing, empathetic teacher and high expectations. If that is what you said, I categorically reject it. Then my question. In the data that you sent, the actual accountability data, there is something, a column that says percentile in school type. Could you tell me what that precisely means?
I first want to speak to your comment, and I categorically agree with you and categorically disagree that nurturing and empathy should be mutually exclusive of high expectations.
Good. Great. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Now, what page are you on in the
Oh,
accountability?
just take the very first page.
All right.
2013 English Language Arts Proficiency Gap Narrowing is the title of this page, or the subtitle.
Percentile and school type. Fourth column from the end.
Thank you, Cliff. On the right side, fourth column. Percentile in school type. Could you tell me, I think that's a new column for me at
It
least.
is a brand-new column.
Great. Could you define it for me, please?
I will make a confession to you. I spent about an hour before this meeting going through the State Leader's Guide to Accountability, and I have not found the definition. So I sent an email off to the Office on Accountability to get a definition. And I will be happy to forward it.
I would love to know it, because if we're the 13th percentile of a certain school type, I want to know what the hell that means.
Well, I want to know what it means because this is district data,
Yeah,
and it's a singular school.
well,
Or is it all of the schools? Are we on some kind of a,
I'm assuming, I shouldn't assume when it comes to the state.
Right.
But I'm assuming that this has something to do with Wareham within the Commonwealth. If not, then, well, the bottom line is, I don't know what it means, so I'll await
I
your
don't either.
email, and I'm sure the rest of the committee would like to receive
thank
it
you for asking.
at the same time that I do.
Yeah,
My assumption, my only assumption in reading the School Leader's Guide was that it had to do with demographics, but it is assumption, and only an assumption, and it doesn't follow through when you look down the column.
Well, I don't know whether it follows through or not, but if they look at our demographics and then they say there's a whole bunch of other schools in the Commonwealth that have similar demographics and our results are in the 13th
13th
percentile,
percentile.
then to say that I am disturbed is an understatement. And of course, it's curious that our high need students in that same column are in the 38th percentile compared to the overall, which is 13. And I shouldn't be surprised, but if they introduce a whole new column set of data and they don't bother to tell you what it means, and you can't even find it on their website, that just reinforces my feelings about the state, but we don't need to go into that.
Oh, be nice.
Right.
I will be happy to forward the definition as soon as I receive it.
Thank you for that second bite at the apple, Chair.
Anything else? Yes.
Can I have a second bite of the apple?
Yes, of
All right.
course.
Just a couple.
SimCap results are our
All right.
favorite night of the year.
I know. A couple of things that I forgot to mention, but, and again, it's my passion, and it's kind of where I sit professionally. You know, looking over the, and I'm not a data guy, you know, we got the data guy, and, you know, I look at the numbers, and I see numbers that I don't like, but overall, you know, I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised. I'm not surprised for a couple of reasons. But we have been fighting the budget battle here for a long time. And, you know, we could take that out of the equation, but you really can't take it out of the equation. There is a correlation between money spent on education and academic achievement. There just is, there always has been. But there are a couple of things I think we could do. Obviously, we've got to keep working on the budget. We've got to be finding creative ways to get the resources that we need to do the job within the confines of those variables that we've got to deal with that are unique to Wareham. But I'll tell you, I signed the warrants. We spend a hell of a lot of money on PD and consulting firms.
Yes.
A hell of a lot of money. And I'm telling you right now, it's been my experience that the best professional development is in-house.
Just as we used in mathematics.
Is in-house. Because from where I sit, we're giving these consulting companies money hand over foot. They must love Wareham. Because I'll tell you, and the bang for the buck, I have to question, to be quite honest with you. So I think that we got to look at our PD, we got to look at how it's being developed, the focus of the PD, who's performing it. Because, you know, I do work for some consulting companies. I know what goes on. And sometimes you get, well, and most times, in my opinion, if it's well developed, you get a better bang for your buck with locally developed programs. Second thing is you look, we can do this, and we can do it right away if we set it as one of our priorities. And we need to have some kind of a program in which we have a slot of time on a regular basis for infused professional development. That should be built right into the schedule. So if we need to do some negotiations with that and make that happen at all school levels, then we should make that happen. The same with common planning time as real common planning time. Because there's common planning time and there's common planning time. I'm talking about real common planning time, in which we talk about common assessments, in which we do collaborative scoring. So I think that those are some things that we can do right now, within the framework of a budget.
Well, we actually have a plan in place, ready to be implemented on October 10th, with grade level meetings focusing on literacy and reading instruction and content for the elementary grades 1 through 4. We have a free consultant coming in through the district.
Free is good.
And the superintendent has approved the schedule. We've shared it with the principals and the teachers. They will have weekly grade level meetings between now and December across the district, so it's not, you know, he said, she said. And these training sessions will be partially training and then partially coaching with teachers using each other as peer models to improve their lesson planning, their content rigor, and their strategies.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you,
Okay. All right,
Mrs. Rotella.
thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, one more second, sorry.
No, I just wanted to thank the committee for allowing the presentation to come as a general overview. We'll be inviting the principals beginning in October, the second meeting, to come and present their specific school data along with their school improvement plans and how it will be related to improving their school scores. And at that point, if you have specific questions for the principals, please feel free to ask. We're also looking at the benchmarks and the assessments. I did take note on providing benchmark and mid-year reports to you. Certainly happy to do that, and we will follow up with our principals on that information.
Just one follow-up question regarding the school improvement plans. Will the same form be used this year as in prior years? The format of it, the school improvement plans, the SMART goal format, or are you looking at a different format to be presented?
I'm looking at the same format, but what I've done, in fact, I finished my meetings today with all the principals and directors, going through their goals and improvement plans. And what I ask for specific measurements, because it's very hard to come in and if we have generalizations to assess what's really going on. So they're now going back to hone their SMART goals, their benchmarks, and their improvement plans, so we can come and look at a certain time. They will be able to provide documentation on how they're moving forward.
Thank you. Great. Thanks again. Next on the agenda is Dr. Marks, the special education overview. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, thank you for having me. I think perhaps we want to adjust the title. This is the foundation for the overview. So I'd like to thank the school committee for having me, and I'm happy to speak to the Wareham Public School community about what we're proposing to do in the next year. What we're trying to do, or what we will be doing, is to... Oh, yes, thank you. Speaking to what Mrs. Shaver-Hood just talked about, creating goals, the goal that I created for my department is one that you're seeing in front of you, along with a list of a review protocol that I would like to head, looking over how we're doing business, basically, in special education within the district. So it's a three-step process, and the first part is the one that you're looking at. It's to conduct a review to understand how our students who are on IEPs are progressing in all academic and need areas, to determine how special education and related service providers are providing services within our school community, and to provide a clear outline of the current model of special education. How are we doing business? The second step, not outlined in front of you, but would be to assemble a community of stakeholders to review the findings, to analyze it for gaps in our programming and for ways that we can support improvement in our students' performance. And the final part would be to propose model adjustments to the way we're providing special education services district-wide, both in instructional practice, in programs that we're offering, and the way we're assigning staff, and how we're offering professional development. We'll be doing this in a number of ways. There's a little leadership group that we formed right now of team chairs, along with Mary Morgan, our new special education program coordinator and out-of-district coordinator. And we've begun already to talk about this effort.
Does Mary have a new title?
Yes.
Congratulations. You're welcome.
I'm very happy to have her. So we'll be doing document reviews, looking at IEPs, reviewing contracts for folks who provide services from the outside. We'll be conducting surveys of our teachers, of our school leaders, of our school committee members. We'll be doing interviews of family, community stakeholders. And we'll also be doing school audits. That is mapping out the programs that are provided in each school for which students, and are we providing a continuum of services. So I propose that we will have this done by January or February of this year and begun to analyze it. So hopefully by the end of the school year, we will have some recommendations about next year. But I would like to come back to you at several stages throughout the course of this school year and talk about what we've done so far, what we're finding, and what our beginning thinking is about possible ways to adjust. Any questions?
Questions from the committee? Yes.
First of all, an overall question, and that is, are you doing this as a matter of course? Are you doing this because you're new to the district? Or did you uncover something in the first month or two that made you feel that this was an essential step to take?
I'd have to say yes to the first two. I think it's a great entry plan, and that I really think it's important for all of us to understand what the current lay of the land is, so to speak. And we can talk about why our students are performing the way they are, or where we think the gaps are.
So there wasn't anything in particular that
No, there
caused
was
you
not
to do
anything in
this?
particular.
Okay. In the document that we were sent, you make the statement, to determine its overall effectiveness.
Yes.
Are there clear metrics by which you will make this a determination of effectiveness? How subjective is this process?
Well, I think one of the things that, and Superintendent Shaverhood talked about it, one of the things that we'll be doing is establishing benchmarks. So what do we think a metric for providing a continuum of services within a school? What do we think our students should be doing, performing in MCAS? So there'll be a number of different things as we go over this. But no, there is no one standard or handbook on how to review these things.
Not even in your head? This is,
Well-
you're just going to establish a baseline and then move from there?
No, there definitely is in my head. I have, yes, I have a pretty good idea of what I believe good practice is, as well as several models.
So when you come back to us in January or February, you're not going to be just reporting on a baseline, you're also going to be reporting as to where you think we have fallen short,
Yes.
and where the gaps between overall effectiveness are,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
And now, this is really minor, but you committed the acronym faux pas.
Uh-oh.
I saw in our superintendent's report of the population that we have a school called OOD. And I had no idea that we had a school that was called OOD. Now, I figured out that that was West, okay, by a process of deduction. But could you tell me what OOD stands for?
Out of district.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
Okay, but
So it's not West.
West was not included in the list, unless I missed it.
No, you didn't miss it.
Okay, so my conclusion that OOD was West was wrong, but West wasn't listed.
16.
Thank you. Okay, so OOD is simply out of district.
Yes.
Unfortunately, PAC,
Parent Advisory Committee,
thank you.
sorry.
AAC and AT.
Assistive Technology and Augmentative and Assistive Communication Devices.
I don't feel guilty at all not knowing these. I just want you to know that.
Absolutely, and you shouldn't.
E-I-E-I-O.
And you shouldn't, and I'm sorry for that, I won't do it again.
Okay, I appreciate that for those of us with less education. And finally, you assert that you're going to determine the effectiveness of teacher assistance team structures.
Yes.
Could you tell me what that is?
Yes, there's, from what I understand, there's a structure here right now that's called Teacher Assistance Teams, or Teacher Assistance Council. I might have it wrong, Teacher Assistant Council, I think. And its purpose is to help teachers when students are struggling to formulate early intervention ideas. It used to be called pre-referral in the early days of special education, and schools were asked to change that perspective because it sounded like one step prior to referral for special education, when really what it should be more is a response to intervention model. So it's one of the things that a grant that we've applied for called Wraparound Zone is also looking at, and how we're considering all the needs of a child, both those academic as well as the social emotional needs, and trying to connect them to services as well as support teachers in trying to resolve the instructional dilemmas that they're facing, or behavioral.
Okay, and I apologize, there was one other thing that I highlighted. You're going to survey teachers to outline time spent on RTI versus specialized instruction service delivery. I'm sure that's a cogent thought that I just can't quite figure out.
Well, no, it's probably not clear. What I've become aware of is as the district has been moving to a response to intervention model, that one of the changes behind it would be that special educators would be spending a good portion of their time eventually and providing remedial services to students who are not on IEPs.
I know that was one of Bob's goals.
Yes. And I'm trying to ascertain just how much of that is happening now, because you can have a little bit of confusion where I look at how many students are on a particular teacher's caseload at a grade level, and it can look like 10 students or 15 students, and I wonder what the rest of the time would be spent doing. So we want an opportunity to map out how much of that is in support of tiered instruction.
And of course, by implication, that's a measurement of the effectiveness of RTI itself, and the original and the regular instruction, more specifically.
Yes, yes. I have a sense it's not near perhaps some of the goals that Mr. Luzon had set for it. And I'd like to see where it perhaps is stronger and where it is not.
I suspect you're right, and I look forward to your report. Thank you.
Yes.
One of the things, and it may be covered under the specialized instruction, I really don't know, but I have a bias, I have to freely admit it. I don't think I've ever been totally satisfied with the inclusionary model at Wareham Public Schools. Are we going to be taking a look at that again?
Absolutely. I think it's covered under the continuum of services.
All right.
We'll certainly be looking at
I just, like I said, I have a bias, and no one has convinced me that I'm not accurate in my perceptions, that we're not getting the biggest bang for a buck on the inclusionary model at all. So I really appreciate maybe zeroing in on that to a certain degree and convince me that I'm wrong.
Well, I'm not quite sure you are. So we'll go ahead and look at,
right.
at how practices
Thank
are
you.
being done, and what we're doing when we are in inclusion would be more my question.
Well, mine too.
Great. Yes.
Madam Chair, if I could just ask Dr. Sylvia to elaborate on what he doesn't like about the inclusionary model.
A true inclusionary model is supposed to be seamless. You really shouldn't know who the special ed teacher is and who the regular ed teacher is. It should be seamless. It should be an ongoing, seamless process in the classroom. And anytime I've been in a classroom where there has been an inclusion, I haven't been able to see that.
Thank you.
There's a main teacher and a not main teacher.
Thank you.
I think that's one of the things we're actually talking about already at the Deacon's School, and the principal and I are going to do a presentation with some of the teachers there on co-teaching, which is essential to providing the model of inclusion that you're talking about.
Thank you,
Thank you.
and welcome aboard.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So just two things. One, I appreciate being able to get an overview for this year and what you're trying to do. Will these, similar to the SMART goals and the improvement plans that are going to be done at each one of the schools, will these actually be turned into SMART goals also, so we can see how you're going to measure them, as well as what, mostly the measurement and the tools that you're going to use to get them out? And I think that speaks to Jeff's point, where we're talking about metrics that might be used. So are we going to blow these out a little bit more?
Yes. So I think what I'm looking at now is first to determine what we have before I try to measure it against anything.
Yeah, it's more just being able to, all right, if these are the goals, putting them into some sort of format so then we can.
Absolutely, so that you can see any kind of progress or how it stacks up against things elsewhere. Absolutely.
Okay. And then the other thing is, does Beyond School Time still report to you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have, it's one, because technology is in here, so it's technology is in here, but I didn't know if that was going to be just what your plans are for that also.
Well, right now I'm looking at special education. So when technology is mentioned, it's actually only the technology related to special education.
Okay.
So as opposed to the rest of student services. So I'm setting a priority here. I think that this is where I need to look first, but that doesn't mean I'm closing my eyes or not heavily involved in beyond school time and other things within the department.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Thank you very much, Dr. Marks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Marks.
Mr. Gillen, talk about the budget process timetable.
Thank you very
Said
much.
it to everyone else, so thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you very much for having me. And good evening School Committee. We included in your papers for this evening a draft budget process timetable. Perhaps I can just explain some of the thinking that went behind putting this timetable together. We wanted to have a clear understanding of how the timetable was going to work for developing the budgets. We also wanted to ensure that we built in lots of time for working closely with with obviously the school committee, but also representatives from the town and officials there. And we wanted a rigorous process which would develop school budgets that would be supported by data and would be linked to the school improvement plans and educational objectives of the schools. So that sort of that drove the thinking behind this timetable. We've also sought to try and front load a lot of the work and a lot of the data gathering and preparation, so we get a lot of that done up front as we go into the process.
Questions?
Just a quick, is that a typo, Michael, on the second line? I assume that's FY15 budget, not 14, correct?
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
yeah.
I realize it's hard to comprehend that we're talking about 15.
Because we're still doing end of year for FY13.
Yes, exactly.
We're managing 14.
A little crazy, but yes,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
So just the question that I have is, with this, are we taking a look at the school committee meeting schedule and moving things up? Because right now, you know, we looked at it where it was the joint, where the principals and the school committee and the FinCom all meet together.
Yeah.
Are those meetings?
Well, perhaps if you're happy with this overall timetable, we can then provide you with the updated dates that flow from that, and it's not so much updated dates, but when we would deal with each topic in turn.
No, I mean, I was happy to see that there's working meetings in
Yeah.
there, that there's some parts of the process, or pieces that you've added to the process that I think is going to go a long way in the communication of it, where we are, as well as working with the Board of Selectmen in the town. And so we do need to vote on a new meeting schedule. So
Yeah.
if we can bring that to next time,
meeting.
just so we can all take a look at that and then re-vote on that. Great.
So if you're happy with this, I think the next step would be to arrange a workshop to review guidelines for developing the budget, to give us an idea. Well, we'll provide some guidelines to set priorities for how we develop the budget going forward for your
Okay.
review and agreement.
All right, is that something that you're looking for us to schedule sooner than later?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All right. So, I'm asking the committee to take a look at your schedules, and what's the committee's pleasure? It could be a Wednesday that we're not meeting, so Wednesday evening that we're not meeting, or a Saturday.
For
What? Okay. So the next, I don't have my schedule up. So,
I got my Palm Pilot right here. if
you
want to
do?
look.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Palm Pilots haven't been too
Whatever.
popular for quite a while.
I know. Well,
Mrs.
my
Chair-
iPhone.
Mrs. Chair.
Yes.
What month are we looking at?
Are we October?
Ideally October, yeah.
Yeah, so if we're talking about October, we're talking about the 9th or the 23rd. And probably earlier, could we do 6 o'clock? So
Is the 23rd too late, or is that?
what would your,
Our preference would definitely be for the 9th if
Okay.
possible. I know it's
all right,
short
so can we all
notice.
take a look at our schedules for the 9th at 6 PM to do a workshop,
Budget
That's
workshop?
budget workshop?
That's a Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely can't make that one.
Okay. Okay, so we have one person that can't, so we can take a look at a Tuesday or a Thursday. So Tuesday the 8th or Thursday the 10th.
Tuesday, the 8th is fine with me.
I think it's okay with me.
Tuesday the 8th
Yep.
at 6 PM?
Nope.
Why?
I have a class I attend, maybe Tuesday from 6:30 to 8.
The chair's getting kind of personal, don't you think?
I know.
Is that
Paid a lot of money for this
Mike
class.
shared, so I thought that.
I didn't actually show what I was doing.
Oh, what are you doing?
Going to the
Okay.
preseason Celtics game. I get 4 tickets.
Oh, you're taking the Celtics over a budget workshop?
It's a family thing.
Come on,
Four of us
man.
going.
And it's only
Family.
preseason.
Oh,
So they got forward.
goodness.
All right, so the other dates, so look at Monday the 7th or Friday or Thursday the 10th.
Thursday's good.
Thursday the 10th.
You gotta do
at
this week, because I'm booked
6.
up pretty solid after that.
Thursday the 10th should work.
Thursday the 10th at 6.
How long would you expect the meeting to go?
An hour.
An hour.
An hour works.
Yep.
It's gonna be real
It's good to be
straightforward.
succinct.
Yeah, it's gonna be all set.
Yeah, exactly.
Get stuff out to us beforehand.
No problem.
All right, so
What-
Thursday the 10th at 6 p.m.
Where?
Can we see if the library is available? The middle school library? Okay. So,
And I walked out, like, what is this for?
Budget workshop.
Budget workshop.
Okay.
okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, Thursday the 10th. Michelle, you have that? Yeah. Thursday the 10th, middle school library. She'll let us confirm that. She'll confirm that that's available at 6 o'clock. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
you. All right, superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. In your packet, you received a welcoming school challenge. We have a challenge going on in our schools with our faculty, staff, and any other members that would like to contribute on how to make our entrances more friendly. So if you have any suggestions, please submit your proposal. We will have judges, and we will be awarding $200 grant to make this occur. This money's coming from the Beyond School Time grant, and we're looking forward to making ourselves very friendly. You received the October 1 unofficial count. We are now at 2,804 students, and I broke down the information to you in an email. Our highest enrollment is at the middle school with 824. Our high school is at 609. Deacon's is at 510. Minot is at 602. East is at 89. The co-op is at 107. West is at 16. And out-of-district student, the count is 47. So that is the information we have that we will be submitting to the state. And that completes the beginning of my report.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Maybe Dr. Marks knows this. What was out of district a year ago? Don't know?
I don't know, I'm sorry.
Anybody?
We
No?
can find
Okay.
out for you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions or? Okay. Do you have something else?
I do, we're ready.
Are we still in the superintendent's report?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. The next question for discussion would be where the $60,000 will be coming for the feasibility of the roof project. If the district, yesterday, the chair and I met with the town administrator and the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and if the money will come from the school district, then the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator have pledged to actively support the borrowing of the money up front. The question comes, if this money is borrowed, does the feasibility money that we would be putting up front count as the beginning of a capital project? If it does count as the beginning of a capital project, then this would need to be moved forward to a vote at the town meeting as the town funds capital projects.
So the question is, so just to when the superintendent and I met with the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom to present our budget article, which was the $60,000 for the feasibility study, the question came up of where is this money coming from?
Mm-hmm.
What that then turned into was a conversation between us and the town of exactly trying to answer that question, where is this money going to come from? We came to the agreement, as the superintendent stated, that we would look for this money within our budget, with the thought that there is some money that will be coming back from the town, having to do with the resource officer. So there is some money that's coming back. So then we would be funding a portion of it within our own budget. So then the article would be taken off of town meeting floor. So we would not be asking the town to borrow it. We would and then fund it out of the LEA. But as the superintendent stated, there is now this question on whether that even can be done, and does it have to go to town meeting floor because it's the start of a capital?
I think it's a capital project.
I think it's a per se capital project. It's not a repair, it's replacing a whole roof.
Yes.
I'm confused. And I don't remember the school committee agreeing to take the $60,000 out of the LEA.
No, it's something that we would have to vote on.
Okay. So you're saying even if we did agree, then because it's the beginnings of a capital project, it would still require going in front of town meeting for approval. Because the overall project would involve borrowing, and that obviously requires town meeting approval. And in fact, the ultimate source of funds for the $60,000, on the assumption that it was reimbursed to the LEA when the grant came through, et cetera, would in fact be town meeting authorization. Do I have that all correct? Okay, right now we have a warrant article that we approved. Are you suggesting that that warrant article is moot? That the action we took in a prior meeting is moot?
The question is whether the article, so my original plan was to come here and say, if we were paying for it out of the LEA, that it will be reimbursed, that there is a portion of it that could be, that we could get a portion of it from the town, then there would be no reason to have the article go to town meeting, because we're not asking. In that article, it's basically saying that we're asking to borrow that money, or for town approval to then go and borrow that money. We would not be borrowing that money. And so originally coming here, I was going to say, if we can get approval to take this out of the LEA, then yes, then we wouldn't need that article. But now we're hearing that because it's the start of a capital plan, that we still need to put that article in front of town meeting.
And isn't it also a fact that their promise to reimburse us is only contingent upon approval by town meeting? So if town meeting, in its wisdom, chose not to approve the feasibility study and the overall project for whatever reason, then we would have simply withdrawn $60,000 out of the LEA budget and seen nothing for it except a feasibility study that we couldn't act on.
Right. So then the plan now would be changing the article, changing the language of the article. So we're still asking for town meeting approval, but we're not asking to borrow the funds to fund the feasibility study.
I understand.
Yes.
Still a capital project, and if I remember correctly, I don't exactly know how this article is stated, but on those borrowing articles, it's to authorize the town to borrow. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to borrow. So just because we've got an article on the floor that authorizes them to borrow a certain amount of money for this particular project, doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to bind them to borrowing that money. We still have choices whether we want to borrow it or not borrow it.
And it's something that we can stand up on
It just
town meeting floor and
authorizes,
basically states.
it just authorizes them to borrow the money. It doesn't say that we can work out a deal in the 11th hour and pay for the whole thing. But they still have the authorization, if they need to borrow the money. But it's still a capital project. Doesn't that have to go before town meeting?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
and just so you know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't think that there's any issue here on asking for town meeting approval for this feasibility study. I think that that's what the state is asking for, and going forward with that, this is really about, for me, do we need to change the language in the article so then it would get favorable action from the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom? There is a question from the FinCom of how this is going to be paid. Fine, we can do that on a town meeting floor and say, this is where we have found a portion of it out of the LEA, it's also going to be reimbursed, but that is after the fact and after the vote from FinCom and from the Board of Selectmen. Before, Jeff? Yes, Mike?
Yeah, when we went to that selectmen meeting, the one thing I took from the FinCom and maybe a selectman member or two is they wanted to know exactly where that money was coming from. They didn't want to just leave it open-ended, like, yeah, let's just, borrow it or raise it or whatever. And that's just an observation. I'm not agreeing with that or anything, but that's where they were coming from. I agree wholeheartedly. It's a capital project. It's in the capital plan. It's in there. It's the town's capital plan. It's not the school's capital plan. So I think I like the article as it was submitted, as we agreed upon it the last time. We voted on it. No change.
Okay.
I'm a little dismayed at the notion that the town will only support the repair, in essence, a new roof on a building that the town owns, if the school department comes up with the money for the feasibility study. That's setting a precedent which I know some people on the town side of government reject. They say that every building, regardless of whether it's the school's building or the town's building, is the town's building, and they have a responsibility to maintain it in a satisfactory condition. So I'm disturbed that there's some kind of quid pro quo that they'll support this on town meeting floor if we promise to take it out of an LEA.
The overall project.
The 60,000 out of our budget. Now, from a timing perspective, and perhaps this makes all of this somewhat moot, town meeting is a short time from now. Mm-hmm. When would this feasibility study even be started?
Do you want to say it?
Yeah, we would start it right away. We would let
Before town meeting?
No, not unless we know that we have the funding. Because what will happen will be, we'll make notification to MSBA that, yes, here's the funding, we've signed off on it. At that point, then MSBA will take it to their board, assign an architect, and assign the project manager, who then will start meeting with us, looking at the high school roof, and start the plan development.
Okay, so no money is going to be spent between now and town meeting.
That's true.
And if the article said that they were going to be borrowing the $60,000, which is a rounding error on the total amount of money that the town has the capacity to borrow and has borrowed, or whether it came out of the LEA budget, it still needs to be approved by town meeting as long as we're talking about a capital project. So I agree with Mike. I think the original warrant article, that we approved still stands, as far as I'm concerned, as the right direction to go.
Which reads, I think it reads, to authorize the town to borrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so it doesn't lock them into anything.
No, doesn't lock them in anything. It just authorizes them to borrow.
Right.
You know, we can work out all kinds of deals if we want to.
And if there's some savings from the resource officer, which is news to me, then they can have it, right? I mean, what is that savings? What's going on with the resource officer?
Last year, there was a grant from the police department that they had submitted,
And we paid for the resource officer, $55,000, I believe it came out of the LEA budget. The grant should have offset that to the tune of, we should have received $25,000. We are now going to be given back the $25,000 from a grant, which in essence would help offset some of the 60.
I discussed that directly with the chief, Chief Stanley, and I thought that 100% of that was in kind from directly from his budget, no? All right, I'll follow up later on that.
Okay. So the will of the committee is to keep the article as written, but how it is, but when we actually get up there and talk on town meeting floor, we're basically able to state that, yes, we are authorizing the town to do it, but that there is negotiation and talks between the town and the school on where that money would actually come from. Right now, we're hearing from the town that there is no money to pay for the 60K.
You're hearing from the town that $60,000 cannot be borrowed as the initial phase of this capital project?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
It can't be borrowed.
Well, if it can't be borrowed, then we shouldn't be putting a warrant article in front of town meeting and requesting approval to borrow, should we?
That was the original reason to bring this up tonight, was that, is it a moot point? But the reason why you have to put it in front of town meeting is because you need town meeting approval. So that's the reason why I said, do we need to change the language in the beginning of the article? Because we're not asking the town to borrow, we're asking for approval to start the feasibility study for the capital project.
I have to repeat what I said before. Every time we get out in front of our citizens on a project, we, I believe, make a mistake. And although I think they absolutely 100% should support something that is desperately needed and will be 68% reimbursed by the state, sometimes
Including the cost of the feasibility study.
including the cost of the, which means the real cost is a little less than $20,000.
Correct.
Good point, Cliff. Sometimes town meeting acts in mysterious ways. And the notion that we get out in front. Now, the irony here is, if town meeting rejects it, since the money won't have been spent, we still have the capacity to simply say, okay, we won't spend it. But if town meeting actually authorizes it, which is the good news, then we have committed to finding $60,000, at least temporarily, in the hope that 68% of it will be reimbursed. But that assumes when the town is asked to actually borrow, presumably borrow, $1 million in anticipation of getting $680,000 back, that the town won't say, ugh.
No, and
That's
that's
a
the
problem.
written approval, that is the reason why we have written up the notes from that meeting, sending it off, and we will get a response back that the support for borrowing of the $1 million will be there.
Yeah, but the problem is the town knows that ultimately it's going to cost $320,000. And if the town can't find $60,000 for a feasibility study that they know will be reimbursed 68%, so the true cost is less than 20, why should we assume that the town can find $320,000 as well? I mean, I'm just being compulsively
understand.
logical here, right?
Absolutely. This is, I think, a case of if you can help with this first stage, then we are there for the second stage. That at this point,
But you're
it's the
still,
will of the committee.
We're not closing the door and helping.
you're still ultimately asking,
If you're asking for the full 60,000 from the town right now,
It's not gonna happen.
right. So it is either working collaboratively to then for the bigger picture, or to basically be in a place that is saying, it's all or nothing.
Is there time to redraft an article? I don't think there is. Warrant's closed.
Oh, I didn't even see it there.
So it can be an amendment on town meeting floor.
Could be an amendment.
Yes. Yes.
And, you know, my hang-up with this is probably shared by others too. I mean, for those at home, I mean, the LEA budget is intended to educate our kids, not to put a roof over their head. I mean, that's, $60,000 taken away from the LEA budget is 1.5 teachers. So, no thank you.
Okay.
I hate undercutting the chair and the superintendent in their negotiations with the town.
It's not about that. It's not about that.
Okay, fair enough, and I appreciate your candor with respect to that. I am just exceedingly uncomfortable with the path, but I'm also exceedingly uncomfortable with the high school having a leaking roof. And so I'm really, as they say, between a rock and a hard place on this issue. But I share my colleagues' concern that I am certain that our superintendent has better use of $60,000 than to literally shove it down the drain, potentially, if the ultimate $320,000 is not found. And that's literally what we're talking about. So I guess what I would hope is there any way, and I'll leave this to you and the superintendent to discuss with the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator, is there any way of getting this may be totally unrealistic, a sense of town meeting as a part of this process, so we have some comfort level that if we spent the 60, that it would really only be less than 20 we'd be spending, because the overall project is going to be favorably viewed by the town when it comes in front of us, as I think it should be.
Right. Before town meeting, what needs to be answered before the Board of Selectmen, and I'm not speaking for the Board of Selectmen or the FinCom, but this is the same thing that we heard, that they need to know exactly where the money is coming from before a vote in the positive will happen for each one of those
Okay,
committees.
then the question I would have for the Board of Selectmen is a very simple one. When the time comes, are you going to be supporting the borrowing of the $1 million, knowing that you're going to get $680,000 back? If their answer to that question is, we don't know, or I don't know, or no, or something like that, then that's not good enough for me to invest $60,000.
No, and I understand in the meetings that we have, that is where our comfort level is, that there would be, don't have a vote of the Board of Selectmen, don't have a vote of the FinCom, any of that, but that is the positive momentum going forward, and that is the sense that we're both getting.
So you believe they will support the ultimate $1 million borrowing,
I'm confident in that.
but they won't support the $60,000 borrowing?
This hasn't gone to a vote of the Board of Selectmen or the FinCom. This is a discussion that is going on where the town administrator and the superintendent are basically saying, this is what we would like to do.
Thank you for your tolerance.
No problem. Yes?
There's a lot of opinions on this, but this is, I've been listening, and I think that this is what we should do.
It's not. You can use it.
I absolutely agree that, you know, we're out on a limb for 60 grand. If the project doesn't get funded or doesn't get approved, then you might as well take the 60 grand, you know, it's been flushed. It's wasted money. There is absolutely no reason, in my opinion, that the superintendent and the town administrator, or whomever, can't come up with some kind of an amendment to this article that can be presented on town meeting floor, that if, I'm just going to give this example, doesn't mean it has to go this way, that there could be a shared cost in paying back the loan. That the school department can assume X number of dollars to pay back the loan, that whatever, town side can assume X number of dollars to pay back the loan, and make a friendly amendment on the article to borrow the 60 grand. And you can put a friendly amendment to say that we authorize the town to borrow $60,000, X number of dollars will be reimbursed to pay for the loan from the school department, X number of dollars from town side, and you work out an amendment to be offered on town meeting floor on that particular article. I don't see any reason why we can't do that. And that way you've got both entities, town side and school side, sharing part of the cost.
The only piece of that is that we're not talking about borrowing. So there's no borrowing that would happen there.
Well, then there's, all right, so there's no borrowing, but that's the article. The article
Yeah,
is
the
on
article's
borrowing.
about borrowing.
Right.
And would part of that shared cost, would our, if we went that route?
I'm just using that as an example. You don't have to go that
right.
route.
If we went that route, would we be credited for this $25,000? Would that be on our side or still the town side for the resource officer that we're supposed to be getting back?
No, the $25,000 supposedly
I don't
is
know
coming
anything
back
about
to us regardless, but that
Right.
would be within ours, that then
We would hand over.
Forget the 25,000, forget about the resource officer, forget about all that stuff. It doesn't matter. It's coming back to our budget. Where we get the money and how we get the money
60K
is our business.
But that would be newfound money, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. We've got a certain LEA budget that we're adhering
Yes, it would
to.
be
This is
$25,000.
25,000 newfound money that we didn't expect.
Right.
Yeah,
So that,
all right.
that's why I'm saying work out a friendly amendment. It can be done.
Anything else on this? Okay. Okay. Do you have something else on your report?
No, not yet.
You sure?
I'm positive.
Okay.
Oh, shucks.
All right, school committee reports, the appointment of subcommittees. Everyone has in their packet the committee assignments. You need a vote on this, right, Michelle? No? Just general agreement and approval?
You agree, and that's what they'll be?
So can everyone take a look, and are there any concerns about the appointments or questions or changes? Cliff, you weren't here last week, we're gonna just put you on everything.
No, I know, but I sent you an email.
I know you did, thank you for that. Yes, Mike?
I would maybe disagree with Michelle in that the Superintendent Advisory Committee, the proposed SC members, I think, per the other side, said that it's supposed to be selected by a vote of the school committee.
I was talking about the
Well, yeah.
So, sorry, so the second piece, the superintendent, the proposed, that is still proposed.
Right.
So, right, so I know that that's part of one document that actually, and that was my fault, that I put it all in one document, that needs to be a separate document and a separate discussion, that the superintendent needs to be able to take a look at that. That was my first draft to her of, based on the superintendent search committee, of the process and everything we went through, but it would really be the superintendent that will come forward to discuss that at a later date.
Okay.
So, sorry about that. This is more just about the first page around the advisory committees and the school committee subcommittees. And just to read it for the viewing audience, the committee so for the superintendent advisory committees, we would have a superintendent advisory that would be proposed of community members, school committee members, elected officials. But again, the superintendent will come back and talk through that with us. The budget advisory committee proposed is Jeff Sweat and Cliff Sylvia. For the school committee subcommittees, the Cape Cod Collaborative, that would be me. The Onset Women's Club Scholarship, it was Kenny turning the reins over to Cliff. Policy Review, Mike Flaherty as chair and Jeff. The negotiating committees for WEA Unit A, B, and C, it would be Jeff and Rhonda Vugan. Secretaries, Mike Flaherty and Cliff Sylvia. And then custodians, bus drivers, and cafeteria employees and managers, it would be Ken Fonts and Cliff Sylvia.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
I was under the impression that the superintendent wanted students on the advisory committee. Was I in error?
No, I will be adding students to.
So what I just said to Mike was that second page was my notes and my proposal to the superintendent. It was added to this.
Okay.
But the superintendent, so that piece of it is not up for vote, or I don't even think it's appropriate for discussion
Fine.
tonight.
Okay.
Superintendent will bring that back
Okay.
with her proposal. Yes.
As much as I would like to work with Jeff And I want some input from the committee. I don't want any possibility that there could be considered a conflict. And I don't know if I would be appropriate to serve on the Budget Advisory Committee, although if the Advisory Committee is just advisory and no vote, I'm sure that there would be no conflict, but I just want to put it out there that there is the potential that it might be perceived as a conflict.
It's an advisory committee.
Yeah.
See where the
No,
conflict
there's no
is.
vote.
Okay? All right, I just wanted to put it out there. I'd be more than happy to serve,
Thank you.
although I don't know anything about numbers.
Other comments?
The Onset Women's Club, I've done that for, I don't know, the last few years. And that's something if Cliff wants help, or I didn't mind doing it. The tie-in there is that scholarship, they look at the students as to their involvement in DECA, youth sports and things like that, so that's up to you.
Okay.
No, I don't care. If you want to do it again, you want to stay on it?
I'm saying if you, I mean, because Rachel did it for
Right. No, if you
3
live in
years.
Onset, I mean, if you want to
So
stay on it,
I
that's
didn't have
fine.
a problem with it, but if you want to change it, you're the chair.
No, I mean,
No.
if you have a preference, I would honor that. Absolutely.
So if it's okay with the chair,
Yeah.
I'd do that.
Yep.
Can we just make that one change?
Mhm.
Okay, any other comments or, all right?
It looks
So
good.
those are our committees and subcommittees. I'm sure Michelle and the superintendent will be scheduling meetings as soon as possible with all of you. All right, thank you. Any other business?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
We, in the past, have gotten a report in October, well, actually, some of them before October, but October will do, on AP scores, SAT scores, class size reports by class, particularly at the high school. I'd just like to know when we're going to be getting that report.
We will be getting that to you in the next meeting.
Yeah, right. You're right on top of your game. Thank you.
Just, I'm gonna talk about,
Listen,
Do you want to, or do you
it's
up to you.
yeah, I guess we could, because there's still a little bit to go on. Okay, yes.
I just wanted to thank the superintendent and Michael and Jeff for getting the bus utilization numbers out to us. As you might expect, I played with them a little bit. I think while there's probably still some work being done to even out the loads, it looks like it's going to be manageable. I also anecdotally spoke to some bus drivers, and they think it's certainly more than it has been, but it's manageable, and they love the cameras.
Right. Thank you, John. Anything else?
just curious, what do they love about the cameras?
Because it's a tool to use with the principals, so that when there really is something that's going on, they've got proof.
Okay.
Good. Anything else? I'll
we
take a
adjourn.
motion to, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained. Thank you very much, everyone. So I think that what we should get ahead of this and get on the phone with Sarah.
I will.
Because, and, well, then I can also, Peter, because they're gonna bring this up next time. So I'm thinking, again, the really important stuff is that the FinCom reports that then you need to vote on. And so they can
Oh, sure,
do it,
sure.
they can basically not vote it in favorable action.